see you guys in the dark.
Testing. I'm not a driver, but I work for a company that employs local rigid, semi, and line haul semi drivers. I've heard a few funny stories, but the one that stuck with me came from a former interstate driver. We have a regular changeover stop. Almost everyone in the country uses the same route and the same changeover stops when doing interstate. The common route for the North State, Queensland, is known as Dubbo changeover. Dubbo is north central New South Wales, and it was a 10-hour drive to get there. When this driver was done with his break, he was on his way back, and rather than stopping exactly 2 hours out of Dubbo, he decided to stop a little earlier to grab something to eat, have a shower, and get some sleep. While he was there, a woman goes around knocking on drivers' doors, yelling, "Want some company, driver?" She was a redneck lady of the night. The driver tells her to go away, and then she goes on to the next cabin. He didn't want to deal with it, as he was exhausted, and had to be up in 6 hours to haul the last 7-hour drive back to Melbourne. Well, she went and banged on a truck a few bays down from our driver. Wrong truck. A woman pokes her head out of the window of the cabin and screams at her, "Go away, you scraggly-looking thing! Go get a real job!" Boy, did she not like that. Before she went to let loose, a male now pokes his head out of the window too and shouts, "Take your company and shut up! You woke me up!" From that moment, it was on. It was a showdown between two bogan women. One that's half-dressed, and another that's got her husband behind her like he's sticking one up her. They're screeching at each other. Our driver is losing it. Up in the north, 7 p.m. during the winter, lights are only just starting to come on. He said that he could still make out the two when he was hanging out that window. Well, the whole truck stop was listening to this. "You piece of scum! Try to make money off of spreading your disease-ridden lady parts all over Australia? When was the last time that you had a shower?" The lady of the night's response was, "Shut up, ugly. Following your man around the country because you're scared of people like me." The screaming was going back and forth for at least 10 minutes. Then suddenly, the woman in the cab goes back in, opens the door, leaps out, and fly kicks the lot lizard in the chin, square knocks her out. The entire truck stop lights up. Horns blowing, engines rev, lights flashes. The whole place just goes wild after they watch this woman leap out of the passenger side of the truck and fly kick this thing in the chin. She laid on the ground, and this woman wasn't done either. She went back to the cabin, grabbed a pair of scissors, and came back out. In the space of maybe 3 minutes, she sliced every bit of clothing the woman had on into ribbons. The only bit of clothing that she had left was what was lying on that woman and couldn't pull out from under her. The park erupts again. She finally decided that she did enough, climbed back into the truck where her husband was, and slammed the door shut. Out of pure curiosity, our driver stayed awake to see how long she was going to sit there for. She laid there for maybe 2 hours. She woke up, and it took maybe 10 minutes for her to get her bearings and realize where she was. Then 20 seconds to realize all her clothes were gone. She got up, screaming, and sprinted off into the distance. I'm a truck driver, and I've had a lady of the night climb into my truck while I was sleeping once. My passenger side door wasn't locked like I thought it was. It was probably around 2 a.m., and in my sleep I sort of vaguely heard my door open, so I was already starting to wake up. Someone shook me by the shoulder. I jumped up and hit her in the face with my laptop. We got in this weird hair-pulling fight kind of thing, and physically pushed and kicked her over the passenger seat and out the door onto the pavement. I stood there, half awake, blinking at her through the windshield when she jumped up, flashed me her chest, flipped me off, and then ran away. I had barely fallen asleep when I woke up an hour or so later to someone knocking on my door again. It was the police. She called them and told them that she was my girlfriend, and that I'd beat her up, then thrown her out of the truck stop. I believe they were getting ready to handcuff me when a few drivers from other trucks came over and explained that she'd been knocking on truck doors all night and that she was there most weekends, either knocking on doors or just climbing into unlocked trucks. The cops really didn't say anything else to me. They just handcuffed her, drove away with her in the back of the cop car. The plot twist is that I'm female, and look nothing like the stereotypical ideal of the manly female trucker. I've been flashed more times than I care to count, by men and by women. I've seen lots of wrecks. I've had someone throw a football from an overpass and bust my windshield once. I helped drag another truck driver out of his truck through his windshield after I watched it run off the road and then catch fire. I watched a guy hit a buffalo and the truck, and the buffalo sort of exploded everywhere. I got stuck in the snow bobtail once, and while Amish family came out and then pulled me out with their horses. They gave me tons of food to take with me because the woman said that I was too skinny. I knew a guy that had a pet goat, a monkey, and a parrot all in the same truck with him. As a man that has reached his 40s, I can promise you that I've seen stuff go down. This one takes the cake for me, though. I was sitting out front of a truck stop back in the mid-'80s. I was sitting on a park bench with a guy that had a big Rottweiler dog on a leash with him. I tried to make some small talk, but he was being a sourpuss. We sat in silence for a few moments, until the most unexpected thing that I have ever seen happened right before my eyes. While we were sitting there, a big 18-wheeler pulls in without a trailer, so he parks up right in front like a normal car would. Inside the cab of the truck with the driver is a little monkey, the dance for the organ grinder kind. I think they are called rhesus monkeys. Well, the dog spots this little monkey and proceeds to freak out. The dog is lunging at the end of his leash and barking at the top of his lungs, generally making a real spectacle of himself, to say the least. The driver is obviously upset, but not nearly as much as the monkey is. In retrospect, I think eagerly aggressive may be a more appropriate description of this deposition. He was pacing the dashboard back and forth while never taking his eyes off the very aggravating dog. The driver opens his little triangle window that you don't make on any cars anymore, the ones made for smokers back in the day. He yells out to the guy to call his dog off because it's upsetting the monkey. The guy laughs and says, "No way, my dog ain't bothering nobody, dude." The dog hasn't shut up since he lays eyes on the monkey, and is bothering everybody for several blocks around. Now here's where things start to get very interesting. The driver says that if he doesn't call off his dog, he's going to let his monkey loose on that dog. The dog's owner laughs and says that his dog would eat that monkey alive. Upon hearing this, the driver leans over, reaches into his glove box, and pulls out one of those tiny baseball hats like you used to get at carnivals, and places it on the monkey's hand. The monkey obviously knows what's about to go down because he is trying to squeeze out of that little triangular window that I mentioned earlier. This monkey has murder in his eyes. The driver hollers, "Last chance to save your dog, man." In response, the dog owner lets his dog off of the leash. Now we have a situation that has escalated to the point where we have a dog jumping up at the window and a monkey screaming right back at him. While the driver finally rolls down the triangular window, leaps out all kinds of miniature primate fury. The dog never knew what hit him. Quick as a flash, this monkey is hiding on the back of his dog's neck, his two back feet all wrapped around his neck fur, with one hand hanging onto an ear. The other hand, as you may have guessed, was raining down merciless blows on this dog's head and face. I mean hard blows. You can even hear the whap, whap, whap sound of the fists. It only took a moment for the dog to realize that he was way in over his head. He bolts, yelping bloody murder as he runs away at full speed. I mean, this dog is running so hard that he's throwing up tufts of grass and dirt as soon as he leaves the pavement. The monkey is still riding his back and beating on him the whole time. The dog's owner acts like he wants to fight, but with several people, including myself, stepped in to stop that nonsense. A couple of minutes or so later, the monkey comes lopping back with the little bat still in his hand and leaps up into the still open window of the truck to await his master, who has gone on into the store. The guy ran off to go try and find his dog, but I don't know if he ever did find it. My ride showed up, and I had to go. Never again in this lifetime will I see something so totally crazy and unexpected like that. I'm both fortunate and humble to have been privileged to be present for such an event. My uncle was a truck driver for many years. He doesn't share a lot of stories, but he told me this one night while we were having some drinks. He spent several years going across country trips, often loading up his trailer in the middle of the night. While he waited for his trailer to be loaded, he'd make his way over to a nearby truck stop with a late night meal and hang out with any other drivers there. After a while, he would make friends with drivers that were on a somewhat similar schedule. He befriended this particular guy that he would run into about once a month or so. He said this guy was absolutely massive. My uncle is kind of a wise guy that can get annoying pretty quickly. He said this was the one guy that he knew about when he crossed the line and agitated him. It was time to go. He runs into this guy every so often, and they hang out and kill time while their semi-trucks are getting loaded up. One night, the guy invites him back to his semi. He tries to show him something that he's built. This guy's semi has a sleeper on the back, so it's pretty big. My uncle is intrigued by seeing what kind of custom work this guy has done in his semi, so he goes along with him. Once they're in the truck, the guy shows him what he's built. It's a heavy-duty box. Apparently, it has hydraulic arms on either side so that he can open and close it with the push of a button. He says once he pushes the button, it seals it shut. It can't be opened. My uncle is kind of weirded out by this, cracks a few jokes about the box. The guy starts to get a little agitated. My uncle realizes this and decides that it's time to leave this guy's truck. A few months later, he finds out that the guy was a serial killer, stuffing lot lizards into this custom hydraulic box. When my uncle told me this story, his hands were shaking so hard that he could barely finish his drink. That guy was pretty massive, he said to me. His hand could cover most of my face. He could have stuffed me in the box, and there's nothing that I could have done to stop him. Or maybe there was someone in there already, he says. He still has nightmares about it to this day.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.